Today, we are going to have our first panel for this month, and I am truly thrilled to have three extraordinary people that I count it a privilege to know. And I'm just going to introduce them very briefly today. And the first one is, we'll do, since it's International Women's Day, I didn't even know that. But anyhow, thanks for that. Yeah. But this way, I ain't gonna forget the rest of the day. But anyway, and so our first guest, let's do the woman first. Our first panelist is a 39-year veteran of the banking industry, who has been played an integral role in consumer, commercial, and corporate financing. She has been involved in internal audit. She led the internal audit team for about 14 years and is highly regarded as one of the leading associates with Commonwealth Bank in the Bahamas. And we have the privilege of having her with us today. And that too, among all the thousands of employees that they have and associates, she's regarded as one of their most sought-after associates. She's very passionate about consumer education, very passionate about debt-free living. Let's welcome Sister Catherine Sweeting, please. Our next guest his favorite nickname is $1 Million Man, right? He is a lifetime member of the $1 Million Round Table. He has his master's degree from the University of Miami, and he is also a professor at the University of Bahamas in Strategic International Marketing. He's president and co-founder of the TriStar Group, and he is a mentor, financial mentor. Most of us know him as Harold. I've known Harold 40-plus years, from they were teenagers, and I'm happy to have him join us today. His perspective on finances is very unique. If you've never had a chance to sit and talk with him, he is another resource that God has placed here in our midst. Let's welcome Brother Harold Antor. This next young man is not a member of Christ Community Church yet, but I have the privilege of knowing this young man. He's an associate, he's a friend. I found working together over these last several years have been extraordinarily impactful. He's a seasoned strategist, financial advisor, former public service executive. He's the founder and CEO of HM Consulting Group, and he has supported over $100 million in financing for projects. His work includes capital raise, business plan development, and financial restructuring. Nick previously served as the youngest managing director of the Bahamas Development Bank, finishing his tenure last year. During his tenure, he secured $30 million in financing facilities from the African XM Bank and launched the bank's first consultancy division. He established a brokerage partnership to increase access to capital, and he played a central role in securing the bank's first World Bank guarantee and implementing operational reforms. He is a profound supporter of small businesses in the Bahamas, having served as a deputy director and chief operating officer of the Small Business Development Center. Let's welcome my friend, my colleague and associate, Mr. Nicholas Heeks. He decided to take the long walk. He was sitting in the back. He must go to one of them other church. Keep clapping for my friend Nick. All right. So, let's get ready to rumble, as we say. And there are several things that we agree on in terms of finances here in the Bahamas. Y'all finished? All right, you good? Is it on? You're on if it's blue. So that means, Christian, give us a thumbs up if you can hear him, please. All right. Yeah, you won't be heard like that. They're recording you elsewhere. All righty. So we know that financial literacy is a key challenge to this country. We have been touting for years the need to improve the financial literacy and education in the Bahamas, and we've been pushing hard for school involvement. Truth is, financial literacy should begin at home. Financial literacy should begin at home. If we are going to raise a generation that understands anything about numbers and economics, that Exercise has to start at home, which means that those of us who have children and grandchildren, part of our duty is to teach our children. So today, we're going to let you see and hear from some of the resources that we have. And one of the fundamental things that we know that plagues our country is the simple term of family budget. Now, by show of hands, really quickly, how many of us have a family budget? All right, there you go. You see the challenge we have. Out of every 10 families in the Bahamas, one has a budget. That's not good enough. Most of the families that have a budget don't stick to it. So, Brother Harold, having understand this plight, the value of a family budget, and what's the implication, medium and longer term implications of having a family budget that we stick to.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. I had an event the other day, and Brother Kano said, when Brother Harold get to talk, you don't check your time, you check your calendar. So I took a point from that, so I'm going to be as brief as I can. Amen, Pastor? Let me say this, that a budget is incredibly important, right? And the reason why that's important is because the biggest problem I find with people when I meet with them about financial planning is that they're lacking two major things. One is a direction, a goal. What are you trying to achieve? What do you want? And I find that often what people do is they are very keen on getting up and going to work and coming home and preparing for work the next day. They're not very keen on what happens next month, next year, and so forth, and planning for that. You with me? So the first problem I find is a goal. And the second problem I find is the lack of a guide in their life to get to the goal. It's interesting that when you watch and listen to the top athletes in the world now, you know what they have? They have a trainer. They have a coach. Every single one of them, who they pay to train them. So a budget is important because once you have identified a goal, a budget helps to guide you, keep you on track on achieving that goal. If you don't have a budget, you are in the wind. You're in the wind. Anything buck up goes. You don't know how much you taking in. People think they know how much they think you're taking in, right? You get paid $1,000. Okay, I make $1,000. But how much are you spending? Especially when all kind of things are happening, $2 here, $5 here. Give me 50 cents. And nothing is $1 these days. Even Snickers is $2.50. I mean, right. For God's sake, that's a crime in itself. So a budget is extremely important because it gives you direction. And the direction helps you towards achieving your goal. Okay. That's me.
Now, you said something about a goal. You may not want to be an entrepreneur. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that if that's not you. You may not want to own anything in life. Doesn't mean that a budget isn't important. Because a budget creates the opportunity for you to be disciplined in how you manage your $10. You just mentioned the Snickers $2. That's 20%. I mean, That's a lot of money. But the reality of it is, Nick, you've seen a lot of people say, well, I don't want to be anything in life. I don't need a budget. Why is that foolish thinking?
If you want to, first, I'll thank you for having me. It's church. You don't build a home without a plan of how you're going to build that home. You don't take a vacation trip to Florida without a plan. I know where I'm going, how am I going to arrive, where I'm staying, how much money I plan to spend on food versus clothes, etc. You have all those, and they're itemized very clearly for your trip to be successful. And you know if you spend too much on food early on the trip, those last 2 days are going to feel hard.
Yeah,
And
ramen, here we come.
Everyone knows that. So everyone in here knows that. So we know how to budget, but the problem is most of us aren't putting actionable steps towards it. Your entire month, week, you should know what's in your finances. Random, if I may ask, how many persons in here checks their bank account every week? They check it. Right? How many persons check every day? You've heard that narrative before when someone say, man, after this weekend, I'm even checking my account for the next 3 days. I don't want to see what's going on. That thinking is the problem. Your budget is the most important thing for you and your family to achieve not all of your goals, to achieve a single goal. To achieve anything you plan to do from its ground up, it requires a budget. It requires you to be transparent. Your husband, you let you know with your wife what you're doing. Your wife, you know what your husband know what you're doing. And I know it's one of the hardest things to have conversations on. But without a budget, you are walking, as you say, you're in the wind, and you're heading toward unsuccess.
They call that tumbleweed. So in simple terms, a budget then means that we must do two things. One, we should list what our income is, and there's a total. On the other side, we should list all of our expenses, including the Snickers, all of it. All of it, if you're going to understand it. Because when you do that, the truth is you don't need to go around check your bank account every day, right? Because you have the discipline. I know that I have this much for mortgage, this much for rent, this much for water, this much for light, this much for food, this much for gasoline, maintenance, insurance, and the list goes on. But the important thing to do is list everything. Don't fool yourself. You ain't going to remember. Write it down.
Brother Jeff.
Yes.
Pastor Jeff, let me say this, that I have a budget template that I use that's available to anybody who wants it. So if you send me your email address, I could just send it to you. And it's very simple and straightforward. Income, all disbursements, and the balances at the end, so you know what to do.
Super good. Now, that's a resource. Tap into it, please. So you make sure you get his email address before you leave. Now, Sister Catherine, you know, you've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of consumers come to you asking for approval to borrow X amount of money. Budgeting, when you ask them, what has been your experience with that? Because I'm sure you've had all manner of excuses provided to you. But how important is it when we are preparing to engage a lender to be able to demonstrate to that lender that you are responsible with your money?
It is so very important because, like Brother Harold said, if you don't have a goal, you're going to find yourself just borrowing money willy-nilly. But whenever you approach the bank in terms of whether it's monies for a home, a piece of property, a car, or in some cases I consider other frivolous things like vacation and that kind of thing, you need to know your goal because you need to structure that debt to ensure that that doesn't interfere with your goals.
Right.
Because if you don't have a goal, like I say, you're just going to go with anything. Just like it's been proven, there are not very many Bahamians who do budgeting, but you could always start.
Yes.
You know, our God says fresh start, you know.
Yes.
They don't operate in budgets. As a matter of fact, they get irate. Because I know when I first became a lender, they send you to lending school. You do courses to tell you need to profile your customers. You need to coach your customers. And I found that customers, and by the way, family of God, when you decline for a loan, go outside and start to praise the Lord. Okay? There's no need to call the vice president of the bank or call your MP who know the bank owner and all these kinds of things, breaking down the door to get the loan. Because when a loan officer decline you, and that credit committee or that manager has declined that loan, it's normally because they see you're going to get in trouble with debts.
Yes.
And, you know, I've seen over the years where persons come into the bank and just constantly borrowed monies and you would advise against it. They would report you to head office, and before you know it, directives coming down, approve the loan, you know. And so if you don't need to get a loan, and in most cases, a lot of times, we don't need these loans.
True.
I find there are reasons why people borrow money, and a lot of times it's tied to your emotion. You may be going through something in life. You may not be feeling good about yourself, or you might feel like your brother or your sister had something that you feel you should have too, and all these kinds of emotional borrowings, you know. And so I would advise persons not to borrow monies for things like vacation. That's something you can save towards. You plan your vacation within your budget that you can afford for you and your family, and you save towards it. And that way, you don't have to borrow money. And even if you have to borrow the money, when you go to the bank, it's just a smaller amount.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to advise, Pastor Jeff, when it comes to borrowing, I find in the Bahamian society, we love these. Thank you. Thank you. We love these loans where we don't require down payments.
Top ups.
That is the worst thing you can do. When they have those auto shows, no down payment, it sounds good because you have your $2,000 or your $2,500 in the bank and you don't want to use it to put down into the car. But I would advise you to use it, because the less amount of monies you borrow from the bank, the lower the balance is for the interest to be calculated on. So if the car costs $10,000 and you have $2,000 towards it, why not inject it and just borrow the $8,000? So it's less interest to accrue over the term of the loan, and you can actually reduce the term of the loan because of that $2,000 injection.
Good stuff. Now,
So-
I was going to come to that, but I want to interject there, because go back to the point that we were trying to make. Your ability to demonstrate to your lender that you have control over your money and you have the ability to manage tells your story. That's your report card. That cuts the conversation down with the lender, whether you're going to the insurance company or any lending institution. So the ability for you to be able to create a budget and manage it over a period of time, you're working toward your report card for whenever that day comes. There's no need to rush to the bank. I'm going to ask the guys in the control room to put up Proverbs 22, verse 7 for me, please. I'm going to make a point as we go on. But the reality of it, too, is people's mentality is, well, I don't make enough money to have a budget. That's someone who thinks foolishly. Simply put, doesn't matter the amount of money you make. What's important is you know what you make, and you know that you have a plan to manage the money that you are earning. The other thing that we talk about a little bit too here is that I should wait until my income grows. Well, talk to us about why that is foolish.
So it's a very good question, right? It's not about the amount of money you're saving, really. I know it sounds contradictory. It's about the discipline that is what shows the results. And so if you start off with that dollar every week, I heard you're starting a savings program, I think is like 4, 5, 10, or something similar to that. That accumulates over time. And so whether you're starting with $50 a month, I'm telling you, once you start, I previously, at a point I worked at C-Filing, you would see persons come in there, wealthy families, you would see all the money in their account, and they bring in their 18-year-old child in there, and they're making them deposit $50. And I'm like, y'all have millions in cash, literal cash, millions. They're teaching their children the discipline of no matter what, I have to put money to the side. So no matter how much you're starting with, you don't wait till your income grows, because if you can't save $50 right now or $5 you have right now by sacrificing at Wendy's, when you get that extra $1,000 in your account, you now go into chemo. You know, you're now you're gonna spend more. That's just how it works. So it's about the discipline. So no matter how much money you're saving, save what you can, because that discipline is what's going to get you to your goal.
Good point. See that passage on the screen? What does that say? I want to show you a biblical vibe. Go to the verse prior. The verse that came before Proverbs 4, verse 7. What does that say? Now put up the next verse. Why? Why should we train them? Because if we don't teach our children, Now, I know we read this verse a billion times because we like to quote that every Sunday when we talk to our children. It's not so much to speak into the lives of the children, that's speaking to adults. Hello? Why? Because if we don't train our children properly, they are going to be slaves for life. Now, if you ever had a mortgage, you understand what slavery feels like. And I guarantee you, some of us who have mortgages, if we had it all over to do again, we would do it differently. So the reality here is training our children properly. And what Nick said is so true. He and I worked on several projects together. We see wealthy people bringing their children to the bank to make their deposits. And they got millions in the bank. What are they doing? They're teaching their children how to save money. They're teaching their children how to manage money without the expectation that what's mine coming to you. And by the way, if you're a parent in here who live in your life to save money to give to your children, you decide what line you're on. All right. Because children should never be taught that I'm going to work hard to give you money. That's why that verse says what it is. I have to teach you how to go make your own. It's not wrong with me helping you, but we should remove the expectation that I work hard all my life so I could dare with my empty hand to give you money. Part of my leaving, providing for my children and grandchildren, is how I teach them to live so that they don't become a slave for 30 years to an institution. That, my friends, is a dangerous way to live. But anywho, we move along. So we have consumers engaging lenders all the time. What are some of the things, one of the things that showed up in the survey is the amount of debt that's been accumulated over the time. Let's talk a little about things that we need to do to help move away, reduce that debt burden over the course of our lives. Let's start with you. What are some of the things that we could do?
Well, debt in itself is not evil.
True.
Okay?
It's a burden, but it's not evil.
Yeah, well, debt is not evil. What is quote unquote evil is the way we think.
Yeah.
Follow me. And I say that to say that the access to capital is a resource. It is how we use that resource that makes the resource good or evil. You with me? Now, is getting a loan for a car bad? It isn't good or bad in itself. The point is, what are the terms around that loan? What is the goal that you're trying to achieve? Is excess debt bad? Yes, excess debt is particularly consumer debt, right? But it isn't the debt itself that's bad, it's how you are using the debt. Now, earlier, our sister came and in her poem, which she did wonderfully well, she did a fantastic job. I always like to listen to her. And in there, she said two things, right, that jumped out to me. One of them is, Lord, make my account grow. Right? Isn't that all of our prayer? But immediately after that, she said something else. She said, and Lord, give me the wisdom or something to manage. Let me suggest this. I think that the appropriate alignment should be upside down. Should be, Lord, give me the wisdom to manage money, and then the account will grow. You see, because what happens to us a lot, I'm talking about debt now, right? Because what happens to a lot of us is the disposition, Lord, make my account grow, does not imply in itself the work and my participation. We just praying as if we still live in the Canaan land times when God sent manna, and the people, it seemed like they didn't do nothing, all they prayed, and God just sent the manna down, they eat the manna, and it don't work like that. Nobody gives you money out of the clear blue sky, right? That has to come from you providing a product or a service to the market. That's how you get legitimate money. So really what you want to do is, Lord, how can I grow my ability to provide products and services to the market, and through that generate the money to be able to grow my account? That makes sense? And that process, getting into a debt situation, may be a part of that process, but again, through engagement with a guide, you can get help on determining the best move with that debt, so that the debt is managed and the debt is productive. There is consumer debt. There's also corporate, or I should say business debt, right? And both of them have their place.
Good stuff. Captain, what are some of the things that you would suggest to consumers to help mitigate the amount of debt that we have? What are some of the adjustments that we could make as consumers?
Okay, for those persons who probably are already in the debt, there is hope.
Yes.
Maybe you need to look at
Go ahead.
Restructuring those debts, depending on how many debts you have. Sit with an experienced lender who would coach you, counsel you, and be honest when you go to your lender, please. Just tell them the truth. I mean, sometimes it may be a bit embarrassing just to tell them the truth, because, sometimes, and not all lenders had that God in them like me. I had the capability to look straight through my customers, right? And I knew when they were not telling me the truth. So I would find a nice way to say, well, we all, because of course, as I was a banker, at some point in my life too, I had my managers who had to coach me because I was just spending money crazy too, and so I say, we all at some point in our lives, we don't make wise decisions, but it's okay, because you'll be surprised. Everybody probably has some debt they don't feel good about getting, and then you'll find them opening up to you, So I want you to really be honest and open with your lender. That's the only way they're going to be able to help you. Because if you're giving them a piece of the story, you're going to find yourself in the same situation over and over again. And so be honest, collect all of the debts you have, because you may be paying out your whole salary in debts, and you can't survive like that. You're going to end up being physically sick. It's going to put strain on your marriage if you're married. It's going to cause you not to feel good about yourself. You just don't feel free in Jesus,
Amen.
And so sit with your lender, tell them the truth about everything. Every debt that you know you own, you take to them, and you negotiate for a good rate. People talk about this thing, interest rate. Oh, your rate's so high. But do you know there are, like Pastor Beckle said and my brother here, the millionaires, those persons who train their children how to get loans and teach them how to save. They come into the bank and borrow monies too, but you know why they can negotiate their rates? Because they have something to offer. Most people are consumed with these high interest rate loans because you don't have anything to bring to the table. I often say to people, see the bank as a stranger. The bank as an individual. You walk into the stranger and you're asking the stranger to borrow $1 million of his money. The stranger doesn't know you. And so the stranger is going to ensure that he has these parameters in place to ensure, if you don't pay me my money back, at least in the first 3-4 years, I get my money back.
Yes.
And so that's the reason for the high interest rate. Rates are tied to risk. If you get risky loans, you're going to find you get very high interest rates.
Amen.
That's why you find rates on things like real estate, houses and buildings, and in some cases businesses, the rates are a lot lower because the risk is not as high.
Thank you.
And so I want you to please remember risk and rates.
Two things that Catherine said that raises our eyebrows. Honesty. We have a lot of liars who go to the bank. You see this young man here? We could tell you, numbers tell a story. You may not like what the story it tells you, but it's going to tell a story. When we're sitting down assessing, even on a corporate level, assessing business plans, where people are going to borrow tens of millions of dollars, sometimes we reach a conclusion something ain't right. Because the story you tell, if it doesn't match up, people are going to tell you one of two things: no, or they're going to tell you your rate is going to be 5 times or 4 times what it ought to be. So it's important to tell the truth, tell the whole story. Sometimes we're in conversations with people and they go, man, my bank fees. I say, well, let's look at how you're managing your money. The
Pastor
way
Jeff-
you manage your bank account could determine your fees.
Yes, sorry. And by the way, when loan officers find customers not telling truth, they note that on the application, and you're rated based on that as well. Because your integrity has a lot to do with borrowing money.
Yeah. And then the other thing is when most Bahamians are paying high double-digit interest rates on loans. You realize that? Because of risks. In a recent survey as late as 2024, the average family take-home pay is around 15%. Why? The other 85%, by the time they get their paycheck, they done pay everybody. The fella who they buy peanut from, salty sausage and cup, the rent, the furniture man, everybody. Could you imagine trying to live on 10 to 15% of your income? So the debt burden from consumers is extremely high, and that's why, the banks report such robust annual returns, because they're also lending money to people who don't tell the truth or show bad management. So I'm going to come to you about multiplying. Some of the things that we should avoid, we have these, and I know you're in that sector, top-up loans, Christmas loans, regatta loans, summer vacation loans, got to go down the road loan. Bahamians seem to have a need for money all the time that makes no sense. We have people who borrow to go to regatta. We have people who borrow because they need a new cell phone. We have people who borrow because Junkin who come in and they got to get their costume to go to Bay Street. People borrow money for all manner of things. So, Catherine, as an experienced banker, I know you make your living by this, but talk to us about the danger of these top-up, overnight, have the money in your account by 2 o'clock loans.
Brother Records, like Pastor Harold said earlier, there are some cases where people need to get the loan, okay? There are some cases where people need to do the top-up. You may have a medical emergency.
True.
Someone might have died and you don't have any money to bury them, and you might have a child that got in trouble and you need a lawyer, those kinds of things. You have no choice but to do your top-up.
So there are some good ones.
Yes, okay? But most of the loans that people get, to be honest with you, are emotional loans.
Yep.
You really don't need them. When you consider why are you traveling, why you want to go away, what are you going to benefit? Unless you're really stressed out, because, listen, a vacation is necessary to avoid mental stress and mental issues,
And
right?
by the way, just to interrupt you, a vacation, a legitimate vacation, is not to borrow $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to go to Miami and do foolishness. That's not vacating. So just so we could quantify it, get that foolishness out your head, all right? Or to Orlando, because that's where everybody going these days. Sorry.
Yeah,
Legitimate vacation.
But like I was saying, we don't need to borrow monies for vacation unless it's absolutely necessary. You can save towards your vacation. And I know in today's world, inflation is killing us. I am, I guess, praise God, practically debt-free, because I still have to pay BPL and the rest of them, right? But I'm even complaining.
Solar coming.
So the cost of living is very high.
Yes, it is.
And so if you don't need to borrow these monies and I find the people you hang around has a lot to do with you borrowing money.
True.
Okay? Be careful of the company you keep, I'm telling you. Hang around people who are going to discourage you and encourage you to save, encourage you to accomplish something, encourage you to, do something positive with your money. Not around persons who telling you about the sale they having at JCPenney or whatever the stores are now, and how we going to go shopping for, in November, that holiday, Thanksgiving, and those kinds of things. Stay away from those kinds of people who are going to encourage you to do that. You don't need to go to America for Thanksgiving to shop. Because, when you find yourself like me, when you retire, sometimes you look in those closets, you have to go and fasting and praying to God for repentance. Because a lot of the things you have, you don't even need, And so let us cut down. You only so much clothes you can wear. And if you're buying clothes to a mass, whatever it is that you might find is a mental situation where you don't feel good or you're having issues and problems, talk to someone so you can
Yeah.
get through that, to avoid you going and bearing into borrowing money to buy clothes and buy this and that to make you feel good. And then when the high of the clothes and whatever else is gone, you're still in the same mental state.
Yeah.
You know, so just hang around persons who can give you positive advice.
Man. Someone asked me the other day in a simple conversation, he says, you know, you must spend a lot of money on clothes. And I said, okay, cool, I appreciate you saying that. But truth is, I don't. But here's what I did. I learned when to shop. Which day of the week? What time of the year? I don't shop on the weekends, online or offline. I shop on Wednesdays. Why? Wednesdays is globally the slowest retail day in the retail chain's life. Nobody comes into the stores, nobody's online. So what do? They drop prices to cause people to come into the store during lunch or go online during lunch. When I go to shop, I go straight to the discount clearance section, and I find the same thing. But check this out. I also sign up on various sites to get notifications when sales are coming up. So when you go out and spend $115 for the shirt, I spend $100 and get 4. Gotta learn. Learn how to shop. It'll save you. And don't buy food, don't buy junk. Buying junk is expensive. It may be cheap on the sale day or the day you buy it. But for the love of God, you buy the shoes cheap or you buy cheap shoes, and those shoes start to bite you on day one. All right, then, I say no more. So, our survey showed that few of our members had additional income streams. We know that money does not grow by addition. You don't put it in the bank and leave it there for 30 years because you ain't have none by the time, because the fees could be more than the interest. So, money grows by multiplication. So, how do we use what we have and the importance of developing additional income streams? Why? Most people are on the job for 30 years, 35 years. All you can get after them 35 years is a basket of fruit, which can be dead in 3 days, some flowers that can be wilted by the time you get home, and then you realize, I just gave these people 30, 35, 40 years of my life, and I ain't got nothing to show for it. How do we fix that problem?
Well, the first thing is you have to manage your money. So you really have to invest your funds. Sitting your money in a bank account, it's fruitless for you and your family. And banks are borrowing at 0%, most of the commercial entities. And then they're lending at some 7, 8, 13%. So you look at their margins, it's a very, in the closed branches down, you do a lot of things online now as well, so you can understand they're getting better at it. And so your money has to go through the same thought process. It has to work for you. And so invest it, call a RF, a CFAL, a Leno, call any of them. And I find that the talking is the problem. People talk too much about it. Who can give me the best rate? Who can give me the best rate? Just start. Just start putting that money in that account. Let that start growing at 4%, 5%. Government bonds every quarter coming out. You could get a 30-year bond at 6.75%, and you could come out of that bond at any time you want without penalty. And so you could take that 30-year, and in 5 years, take your money back, but you've accumulated 6.75 every year. So make your money work for you. The way you could find the best clothes, as Jeff mentioned, the way you could find the best time to buy your shirt, to get the best value for it, how come you don't know which is the best place to make your money grow? How come we always know the best way to give away our money, but we never know the best way to grow our money? So firstly, invest the money you do have. Secondly, income streams. Warren Buffett always says, invest in your field of competency.
Yep.
So if you understand what you are great at, see if there's an additional way you can provide that service on weekends. You know, you could, if you cook and you cook well at main style, you could bake, sell a couple of those, put some good margins together, and if you had an extra $200 in your pocket, 200 times the number of weeks in the year, you've saved that. And then if you do that every year and you're investing those profits, you're now getting that money starting to work for you. And so I tell patients, if you have a car that you don't like no more and it's still in good shape, go apply for one rental car plate, you know, and you can literally rent that car out. You don't have to just sell that. If it still is obviously in a good functioning position, it's a first start off in your field of competency. What can you do now for your that you do at work or even at church? Like I always look at persons doing audio visual at church. To me, they are always set to be very wealthy. As soon as you, or similarly, someone doing the music who's playing the piano, you can now go to other churches and play other functions and play, same with the audio visual. And so you could start off there, but then also you could start a business. You generally get a good business plan done, and you could start. I don't like to tell people what they should begin to work on, because it's usually what you understand and what gives you fulfillment to do in the long term, because it's very hard operating a business.
Yep.
And so first, invest your money that you do have. Two, look within the scope of what you do and how you can find ways to make additional money. Whatever it is that you can make, please take that, and in the end, invest that. Or you can start a traditional business as well.
He mentioned something about resources and skills. Everyone in this room has a skill. Think about this for a minute. Some of us in this room are on the path of spending 30 to 40 years doing something for someone and getting paid for it. I tell young people all the time, by the time you get 40, be ready to step off to do your own thing if that's you. But don't give your life to 30, 40 years to someone when you pass up opportunities. Why? They are paying you a handsome set of money every month to do that thing for them. In the financial space, there are qualified Bahamians managing billions of dollars on behalf of global clients right here in this country. Billions. Billions. Did I say B with a B, right? Billions with a B? Well, listen. Why not ask yourself the question, if I could get paid every month to do this, what in this can I start to do for myself? And start on the weekends. And start generating additional income. Don't laugh. Every one of you has a skill that needs to be assessed. And ask yourself, how can I use this skill? People pay me to talk. I get paid good money to talk. Y'all can laugh all you want. I get paid good money. That's how come I get dressed like this. I get, just kidding. But I get paid money to talk. You know this. You know this. People pay. The point is, everybody has a skill. And you have to ask the same question that God asked Moses, what is that in your hand? But we can't allow ourselves to be content to use that skill for someone, for some entity for 40 years. That's mad.
Pastor Jeff.
Yes, sir.
A couple of points. One of the themes that I notice is consistent today, right, which is very important, is one, mindset, right? The way you think about money. The other is self-discipline.
Yes.
Okay? Disciplining to save and then invest. The third is delayed gratification. And delayed gratification, we in this culture, everybody wants it now. And now costs money that you do not have, right? Or money that is not in your budget. So the question is, do you really need that new car now? Right? Get a used car, right? You know, today, just give you an example, right? Today, I drive a nice car, right? And people see me driving that nice car now, and they say, wow, right? But the fact of the matter is, several years ago, I was thinking about getting a car. And my son came to me and said, Daddy, I need to go off to school. I want to do my master's degree. So I had to delay getting what I wanted for me for several years, and I drove around in a little white note. Some of you saw me in a little white note for years, okay? So, Jeff, time's up.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. I just want you to know that.
Give me back the mic then.
I'm not good
Yeah.
at secrets. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's why I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
get the message. Time's up. Delayed gratification. Now, let me say this. You talk about ways to improve your income and use your skills and all this stuff, right? One day I was driving to work. When I worked at Globe, I worked at Global Life for a number of years, and then I moved to Family Guardian. One day I'm driving to work, and the thought just popped into my head out of the clear blue sky. Says, what are you building? What are you building? And that thought resonated. A year later, we started our own company, right? Doing the exact same thing I was doing for these companies for a couple decades. I got together with a couple friends, and today we're doing the exact same thing, bigger and better, but it is now owned by me and my friend.
Yes, and that's the difference.
You see what I'm saying? Use your skills and your abilities, whatever they are, right? That's one thing. The other thing is, I know time is gone, but I'm going to get these couple of points and I'm out. If you work for some place and you have a pension program, the best investment you could make, my friend, is to contribute to the max of that pension program. Why? Because once that pension program, once you get vested, especially if you're contributing 5%, your company contributes 5%, that's 100% return. Plus, which is in a safe environment, and you go into that work every day, double your contribution in your pension plan. And some pension plans even allow you to add a little bit more. So you're able to get professional investment advice without having to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's incredible, right? And lastly, overtime, right? You come home, you ain't doing nothing anyway. You go home, watch TV. Spend another hour or 2 hours, if you can, if you are in that kind of space, to do something else to make that extra money and put that money aside to, number one, save, and then when you get to a certain point, you turn your savings into investment. I'm out.
Thank you. Our last bullet point, and I'll ask the panel for their one nugget. The question was asked, given the increased global tensions, the new war in Iran, and the potential impact on countries like ours, as it relates to finances, what is the one piece of advice that you would give in terms of how should we prepare in the medium term for that economic impact? We'll start with Catherine. What's your one nugget that you would give?
Well, my one nugget obviously would be start saving, because most Bahamians are not saving.
True.
Like Brother Harold said, you have to start with saving. And when your savings reach $1,000 or so, you invest. Okay? Also, learn how to cut down on some things. You need to curtail your spending. You have some habits we have where we spend monies willy-nilly, unnecessarily. We must discipline ourselves on how we spend our monies.
Cut expenses and start increasing your saving. Harold, one nugget you'd leave. How do we prepare for this pending economic impact?
Watch your liquidity.
What does that mean, liquidity?
Meaning your access to cash, and this is why that budget thing is so important. Again, I have that template. If you're interested, send me your email address. I send that to you. Why? Because the cost of everything is going to go up, because everything is run by the cost of energy. And renewable energy is not ubiquitous enough to have real impact on everyday life and food.
Right.
The food that you pick up in the food store is impacted by the cost of gas.
Yep.
Because whoever is making it got to pay for the energy to either ship it to you, either and to put it in their machine to make it, and so forth. You see, BPL, you get a direct relationship on the cost of that because of the cost of energy. So what that means is you really need to review your budget. You have to decide, do I really need this at this level? And then start to create a liquidity cushion. If you could do, 1 week pay of liquidity put aside, at least you got that. Start with that. Then you try to get to a month of liquidity,
Nicholas, what would be your one nugget?
Mine to be simply, in real estate, they say it was best to buy land 20 years ago than it is today. But today is better to buy land than 20 years from now. So no matter if you have not been investing, you haven't been doing it, today is the starting point to do it. That's my last nugget. Start.
Thank you. My nugget would be, yesterday we had a small group men's prayer breakfast, and we had a good gathering, and one of the brothers put the same question to me, and I said to them, defer your major projects. Defer it for now. If you don't have to do it, if you don't have to do that improvement, don't do it. If you don't have to buy that new car right now, don't do it. Let that money wait for a little bit. It'll come by to save you later. My brothers and sisters, thank you all. These are the resources. We hope that you would tap into Nick, tap into Catherine, tap into Harold. They have a lot to offer as we continue this month on focusing on biblical stewardship and finances. We want to make you aware of the resources that are available for you to tap into. Special thanks to Nick, Catherine, Harold. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. God bless you.